from the blackest corners of your mind, they call, pulling you deep into shadow, twisting your senses, keeping you from sleep. It's time to face your darkest fears. This is Tales to Terrify. Good evening, children of the night, and welcome. A quick reminder that our annual flash fiction contest has emerged from the dark depths and is currently wreaking havoc on the unsuspecting horror fiction community. Our theme this year is folk myths and fairy tales, drawing on the shadows that have left an indelible mark on our cultures and histories throughout the ages and into present day. Cautionary tales and legendary creatures to keep you hovering on the edge of sleep until the first rays of dawn creep in through the window. You've got 1,000 words to spin us a mythical tale of terror, with $50 and bragging rights up for grabs. We'll select the top story, as well as up to 4 runners-up, to be featured on a future episode. Claw your way over to talestoterrify.com/flash contest for more details or to enter. You've got until midnight on February 28th, so make haste. Tonight we have 2 tales with extra long titles for you. First, we meet an artist whose work has universal impact. Then, a caretaker of a very unique hotel has trouble leaving her work at work. Our first story for the evening comes from Frank Oreto. Frank Oreto is a writer of weird and horrific fiction living in the wilds of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His work has appeared in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, Flame Tree Press, and the year's best hardcore horror. When not writing, Frank creates elaborate meals for his wife and ever-hungering children. Children of the night, join me for Frank Oreto's The Perceptual Inconstancy of Enid Wozniak, first published in Vastarian, Volume 4, Issue 1, Spring 2021.
In the rarefied world of successful artist agents, Finn Winslow had a reputation. His clients weren't merely talented, they were visionaries. Finn found true outsider artists and knew how to market their strange manias. Maybe his clients were a bit unstable, but damn if they didn't live for their art. The problem was, they didn't last. He lost them to suicide or mental institutions. Hell, sometimes they just got better. So he was continually looking for his next client. Finn discovered Enid outside Drake's Bar and Grill on Pittsburgh's South Side. Or rather, she discovered him. He had flown in from New York to interview an artist who made something he called olfactory mosaics. Finn got away from the man's art without vomiting, but it was a close thing. He needed a drink. A woman blocked his entrance. She was thickly built and barely topped 5 feet, her head shaved to the skin except for 2 ponytails at the sides. "You the guy with the good eyes?" she asked in a high, nasal voice. Finn couldn't tell if she was asking him or herself. "What do you know about perceptual inconsistency?" "I'm guessing you're an artist?" Finn asked. He'd been set up before. "How do you know I'd be here?" I'm Enid. Enid Wozniak. She extended a sweaty hand and completely ignored his question. Finn Winslow. But you knew that, right? I knew someone with good eyes would be here. Today, maybe tomorrow, at 1300 hours. You were probable. Come see my stuff. So you don't know who I am, but you want me to come look at your art. Why me? Enid gave him an exasperated look. Observation changes things. Heisenberg, dummy. I need those good eyes of yours. Finn went. After all, he had flown to Pittsburgh to look at art. Enid Wozniak might be odd, but odd was his wheelhouse. Enid's home lay on a steep slope where the streets were cement staircases. The roof sagged, and peeling paint gave the walls a leprous aspect. High weeds filled the tiny yard, and rainbow swirls of paint covered the windows. Promising, Finn thought. Enid opened the door and pulled him inside. She had gutted the house's interior. The upper floors were torn out, leaving a single cavernous space. The glow from hundreds of colored bulbs and candles revealed chaos. Every surface dripped wax, sprouted hair, or exploded with plant life. Colorful birds sang and flew as water flowed from explosions of pipework into algae-spotted pools. The sound of singing filled the space. Motion sensors trigger the sound system, Enid yelled over the cacophony. Mostly Bach, choral stuff. The beehives provide a nice fuzzy bass tone. It was all overwhelmingly strange, but Enid was right about Finn's eyes. They were good. Those good eyes told him this schizophrenic interior design might be impressive, but it wasn't marketable art, even as an installation. Enid, he called as she flitted across the room like a coked-up hummingbird, moving things, adjusting lights. Wait for it, she said. The variables aren't right. Only had to account for me until now. She grabbed a cockatiel from where it roosted on a vine-covered coat rack. Sorry, little buddy, but the flow is off. Enid wrung the bird's neck. How about now? Finn opened his mouth to protest, then froze. All his practical business concerns melted away. The colors and sounds were flowing, revealing not just a pattern, but meaning. Not merely beauty, because beauty could be shallow, and there was depth here. Most importantly, he wasn't a spectator. His being here mattered, made everything work somehow. Hands pulled him out onto the wooden porch. Enid's full-moon face filled his vision. He kissed her. She pulled away, laughing. I lost you there for a bit. Finn felt scrambled and somehow full of light. I'm sorry, did I kiss you? It's okay. Art's weird like that. It's good though, right? My stuff? Yeah, Enid, it's good. The shadows had grown long outside. How long was I in there? 2 hours. Finn felt giddy. He'd always secretly thought of himself as a parasite, living off the talent of others. One reason he specialized in outsider artists was they actually needed him. He wasn't just taking advantage. Enid's art changed the relationship. With her, he wasn't pimping someone's talent. He helped create it. If Enid could make other people feel that way, feel like they all had a hand in creating something amazing, her art could change the world. Finn tried to rein his thoughts back in. To bring Enid's art to the public, he had to be her agent first. Jesus, do you know what you've created here? She shrugged. I'm not done yet. I need more good eyes. Oh, Enid, you let me represent you, and I'll get you more eyes than you know what to do with. Enid took Finn's hand and shook it. It's a deal. Finn's initial euphoria lasted for days as he lined up the equipment and small audience Enid requested. Too small, in Finn's opinion. But he knew not to push things. His surety faltered on his next visit to Pittsburgh, and evaporated altogether on the one after. Looking again into Enid's cavernous room, he saw only a mess. No meaning, just madness. Enid was unperturbed. "More eyes," she said as she cemented plastic ant farms to the back of an old leather sofa. "It changes things. Once the cameras are arranged and the other 12 observers are in place, it's going to be wondrous." "I'm still not happy with the whole camera thing. I just don't think it will be as intense for the viewers, and these are people we want to impress." "It's easier to control the angles, Finn. And the cameras also expand things. Trust me, it's essential." "Fine, what about the numbers?" Finn asked. "I mean, come on, 13 observers on Friday the 13th. I'm getting some pushback." "They're superstitious?" "No, they're afraid it's going to be some sort of haunted house full of black cats and rubber spiders." "Superstition is healthy," said Enid. "It's like..." She snatched at the air for the right words. "Instinctual understanding. We feel awe or dread, but the reason why is too complex to understand. We just know it's important. 13 is like that." Finn knew better than to try to follow the logic of his clients, but he couldn't help himself. "Like what?" Enid put down the ant farm. "You know about Fibonacci numbers?" Finn searched his mind. "I've heard of them." "Uh-huh. How about Mersenne exponents? Archimedean solids? No?" Enid sighed. "Ever brine a turkey, Finn?" "Yes," Finn said, feeling absurdly proud. "Why?" "It makes it juicier." "It makes it more forgiving," said Enid. "You can screw up, let the temperature get a little too high. 13 is like a brined number. It's forgiving. Lets you get away with things." She gave him a conspiratorial wink. Finn gave up. "I really have heard of Fibonacci numbers." Enid snorted with laughter. Finn left, thinking maybe Enid wasn't so much crazy as just too smart for him to understand. The thought restored his faith a little. By the 13th, that faith had turned to ashes. Enid was not answering his texts. He'd arranged the 12 observers, movers and shakers in the art scene, but all with good eyes, no posers. He hoped there'd be something to show them. Rain battered his rental as he drove from the airport. What if the electricity went out? Hell, what if Enid had burned the place down? Why did he do this to himself? Then memories of what it felt like to be part of Enid's art filled his head. He'd found something special this time. He needed to show the world. Finn parked and jogged up the flight of steps leading up to Enid's house. The rain had stopped and the city seemed hushed. Enid waved from where she sat on her porch steps. "You ready?" he asked as he reached her. Enid nodded. "Yeah, I got 13s out the yin-yang. The numbers are so soft I could shove the world right through them. But now I'm wondering whether I should, Finn. What makes my vision so special that I should push it on everybody else?" Finn had dealt with this sort of thing before. "Enid, I've been in the art world my whole life. What you've done is special. I wasn't looking at your art, I was part of it. You don't just have the right to share what you've created. You have an obligation." Finn had given variations of this same speech 100 times, but he'd never been more sincere. Enid stood up. Her eyes seemed to drink in the world around her. "You don't quite get it," she said with a sad smile. "What this is? But thanks." She handed a wireless earpiece microphone combo to Finn. "Make sure your friends are watching." Inside, the room looked the same as before. Maybe a few changes. The ant farms now hung on the south wall. Lights had been moved around, and a large black dog lay on the floor by a kiddie pool full of broken stained glass. Finn toggled the earpiece on and heard voices. "All right, folks, we all here?" His 12 viewers sounded off, and Finn gave Enid a thumbs up. A voice sounded in Finn's ear. "I have to say, this looks like an episode of Hoarders from my end." Finn recognized Jerry Saltz's cigarette rasp. "It's a process, Jerry. Just give her a minute." Enid danced about the room, unscrewing light bulbs and pinching the tops off flowers. The dog barked, its harsh tone mixing with the voices of choirs from hidden speakers. Enid splashed green paint onto a broken mirror. "Now!" Finn waited for the flow of Enid's art to take him. Instead, his mind suddenly wrenched. A million abstractions solidified into an iceberg of extreme sensation in his head. Voices screamed in his ear. Finn batted at the sound until the earpiece fell away. Suddenly, Enid's face rose in front of him, cutting through the raw feelings. "I thought this might happen," she said. "The numbers aren't as forgiving as I need. Even with the 13s. I have to adjust the variables." Her hand rose, holding a jagged piece of broken glass. Finn thought he might have screamed, but couldn't be sure. Enid didn't even blink as she pushed the glass point into her right eye and then her left. For a moment, her face filled Finn's entire world. Her eyes closed now, blood flowing like scarlet tears. Then Finn's mind wrenched again. There was blinding pain, a roar of white sound, and then emptiness. When Finn's awareness returned, he gazed about the room and saw only a hodgepodge of junk, plants, and animals. Enid stood in the center of it all, her hands clasped together. Small voices came from the earpiece on the floor in front of Finn. He wondered what they'd experienced. As he lifted the earpiece, it erupted with feedback, mixed with either laughter or screaming. Finn dropped the wailing chunk of plastic and crossed the room to Enid. "What did we just do to them?" Enid turned her ruined face toward his voice. "It worked, Finn. They're all part of it now. Everyone is." "No," said Finn. "Nothing happened. Just a bad trip or something. And your eyes. Jesus, Enid." Enid shook her head. "Take me outside, Finn. Tell me how we did." Finn led her across the room. He'd get her to a hospital, but no way would they save her eyes. Anger welled up inside him. She had a gift, and she'd ruined it. He reached the door, but hesitated without knowing why. "Let's go," said Enid. "We're missing it." Finn pushed open the door. Outside, the lights of the city were gone. Instead, the long grass of Enid's yard lit the night with a soft, translucent glow, the plants weaving together into intricate figures, then flowing apart. "What's it like?" whispered Enid. Voices erupted in the distance. A choked sob, a scream, a snatch of prayer. He saw the sources, silhouettes in the darkness, their heads tilted upward. Something enormous, a tree, he thought, flowed down the hill past him, its roots propelling it through the ground like a swimmer. Finn only spared it a glance before his attention also riveted on the sky. "Oh, Enid, you did this?" The stars were growing, filling the night. They weren't stars any longer. They were the buds of flowers on a celestial scale, and they had begun to bloom. Then the flowering stars sang. Finn felt his body answering, loosening its hold on his present form so that each part could find its place in this grand new process. He could still feel the warmth of Enid pressed against him, her voice in his ear. "How'd I do?" she asked. A terrified remnant of who Finn had been wanted to shake the woman, scream at her that she'd destroyed everything. But his terror drowned in the joy of becoming something new, of being part of this vast, transforming artwork that began in Enid's strangely unique mind. Just before his ego unmoored itself, Finn pressed his lips to her ear and whispered, "You were right, Enid. It really is wondrous."
That was Frank Oreto's The Perceptual Inconstancy of Enid Wozniak, as read by Colin Duncan. Colin Duncan is a well-spoken man of strangely indeterminate age. He often uses archaic words and speaks of centuries past as if he had personally witnessed them. But that would be impossible. These days he lives in the Pacific Northwest, where he sells sustainable clothing by day and teaches martial arts by night. Thank you, Colin. Our second tale tonight comes from Kathleen Schaefer. Kathleen Schaefer is a speculative and contemporary fiction writer based in Seattle. Her stories have previously appeared in Podcastle, Gamut Magazine, and Apex Publications' anthology, Robotic Ambitions. When not writing, she works as a software engineer and enjoys baking, board games, and appeasing her attention-hungry cat. You can find out more about her writing at KathleenSchaefer.net. Link is in the show notes. Listen with me, children of the night, to Kathleen Schaefer's The Ossification of the Space Between Us, first published in Gamut Magazine, February 2024.
The hotel is made of 100,000 living bones. That is an estimate. The exact number fluctuates as new cartilage fuses together and old skeletons wear to dust. Children try to count, running their hands over the great vaulted spines of the lobby and the thin knuckle bones of the window jambs. When they give up, flopping into a cushioned fibula alcove, the hotel's caretaker will ask them how many, and the kids will shout, 10 million! She nods and says that sounds about right. Cheryl has maintained the hotel for 47 years. The hotel likes Cheryl. She comes early each morning and sips tea at the continental breakfast, where pre-packaged pastries spill out of the cavities of skulls. As guests wander through the buffet, she welcomes each one, passing on a greeting that the hotel cannot communicate on its own. Though Cheryl lives in a boneless house on the opposite end of town, the hotel is her home. The hotel doesn't know how to be a home. She says she imagines being buried here, her spent bones nestled beneath its breathing ones. The change would be minimal. There'd be no tea in the morning. She'd miss the tea. Each day, Cheryl reads the booking system out to the hotel. Full names, hometowns, which guests sounded nice on the phone, and which ones she thinks will demand 3 changes of towels without saying thank you. When she's patient, she'll read the hotel their entire file, all the credit card numbers and emergency contacts, and whether their phone's area codes match their addresses. The hotel likes this information, though it doesn't know what to do with it. But today, Cheryl looks at the booking in room 3 and says only, "Her name is Anna Lee. Don't worry about her. She'll be gone in 2 days." This worries the hotel. The hotel doesn't like mysteries. It doesn't like a blank space where information should be. It pesters Cheryl with a cacophony of creaking joints, following her wherever she works. While she labors, the hotel turns all the faucets on in the bathroom, which makes her complain about the water bills. It shuts her in the room until she sits down, listening to the water running and the hotel's bones groaning, and says, "Annalee is my granddaughter. You satisfied now? Don't ask me any more about it. I've never met her. Now let me out so I can do my job." The hotel opens the door, unsatisfied with the explanation. Annalee wheels her suitcase over planks of flat sternums. She does not check in, for the hotel anticipates everyone's arrival. It opens their doors, makes their beds, and absorbs every detail in their snippets of conversation. Through their stories, the hotel constructs a model of an outside world it will never see, of buildings made of stucco and steel, of streets crowded with so many skeletons that they push past each other, incurious about the lives they so briefly bounce off of. This background chatter, the passing words of transitory guests, is all the hotel craves. Or rather, it is all the hotel demands. Cheryl has written it into the terms of agreement. She calls it a contract, but it is more a warning that the hotel will extract, through its own means, stories from each of its visitors. Most guests do not read the notice and assume the small fee covering plumbing, electricity, and upkeep is all the payment they will make. Most leave without learning otherwise, having talked of their lives over breakfast, reminisced by the jointed windows, or made passing small talk in the cavernous halls. They speak, unaware that the hotel is listening and procuring its fee. The hotel prefers this system, debts assumed and debts repaid without knowledge of the exchange. It then opens its front doors again and watches each visitor leave. It prefers that, too, to unlock the doors at the end of each stay. To do otherwise is uncourteous. And the hotel cherishes all its occupants. It delights in the noisy breakfast hall where it can learn of cities that grow tall or die in flames, of night skies alight with colors and deep oceans of unfamiliar lives. And some days, it longs for the soft tissues of its visitors, for muscles that could lift itself out of the dirt and transport itself to new cities and countries and continents, for a body that could sip Spanish wine on the sidewalk and unearth iridescent beetles in the Amazon. Annalee arrives alone, and solo travelers are the hardest to decipher. They have no one to turn to and say, "Remember that trip to Tokyo? The cherry blossoms in the spring?" The hotel tilts the bones of the floor, creating just enough incline for Annalee's suitcase to roll into a young man sitting beside the fireplace. It learned this trick years ago, the manipulating of two humans into the same space until one asks, "So where are you from?" But Annalee snatches her runaway suitcase, mutters a brief apology, and moves away before the man can pry any secrets out of her. She has a photo of Cheryl on her phone, which she looks at, then scans the room, then references the photo once again. The hotel loves photos, static glimpses of an outside world, and this one shows Cheryl years before she wandered into its skeleton. She is holding a child, a young boy who she has never mentioned, and stands beside a man the hotel has never seen. Annalee spots the caretaker watering ferns in the lobby, but upon making eye contact, Cheryl moves to cleaning an unoccupied room, shutting the door between them. Annalie walks up to the closed door, clenches her fingernails into her palm, then ensconces herself in her own room. She does not ask the hotel to open Cheryl's door, as it is not her room to enter, but the hotel would have opened it for her. The hotel's spinal column branches into 12 rooms, each with king-sized beds and plumbing that no longer secretes blood. The visitors didn't like that, and though the hotel thinks the blood born of its marrow is a life-giving thing, it respects guests' wishes and keeps its creation out of the carpets and water supply. The tourism guides resting in the cranial cavities of the bedside table list little more than a local Denny's and a decrepit miniature golf course. But travelers shamble in from across the world just to live for a night in someone else's bones. They probe the inside of the hotel with camera lenses and carry memories home of draperies hung over wrist bones which pull themselves shut at night, and doors of interlocking vertebrae that separate at the presence of an admitted traveler. But Annalie does not marvel at the long humerus bones framing the eastern view of the lake. She scrunches her face at her skeletal bed when she thinks no one is watching. The hotel is watching, and sleeps through most of the day. The hotel, always gracious, switches off the lights. But it mourns the silence and the lost hours it could have spent puzzling out this newcomer. It aches to raise the left femurs of the bed frame so the woman falls out of the sheets and down into the halls where she will speak of her home, of the bones that live alongside her, of the children and grandchildren that Cheryl hid from the hotel by omitting information that she, among all else, should know the hotel needs. Instead, it lets Annalie sleep, and it craves. All guests have stories, but Annalie has answers. Cheryl is the hotel's only constant presence. She washes dishes, fixes pipes, and scrubs all the corners that the hotel's phalanges cannot reach. They've lived in each other's company for enough years to develop a shared language. She has never spoken of a family. The hotel accepts that it will never learn every facet of the human lives that pass through its doors. It does not accept this about Cheryl. The hotel greets its caretaker, angling its bones in a subtle pathway to where Annalie sits alone at a breakfast table. "No, not now," Cheryl says. "The dishes are piling up." With a tilt of a rib, an unwashed mug rolls off the counter and onto the floor, and a dozen bones guide it to the foot of Annalie's chair. "You'll be the death of me," Cheryl says, and the hotel disagrees. Annalie picks the dehydrated fruit out of her continental breakfast muffin. "Hi, Grandma. I was wondering when I'd get to see you." "Oh, I'm just picking up." The mug rolls to the opposite side of the table. "Please talk to me," says Annalie. She has Cheryl's cheekbones. As the hotel waits, the other guests chatter, so rich with information and details of their unshackled movements, become meaningless. It listens to hear Annalie and hopes she will say, "My father, your son, lives in a home smelling of pine needles and ground pepper. When he smiles, his dimples curl in the same shape as the ringlet of hair draping over his brow. When he speaks of his childhood with you, his voice has the timbre of a quarter dropped on a wooden table." Instead, Annalie bites her lower lip and tells Cheryl, "I came here to find you Even though my father and grandfather think you'll never return, we need you to come home." The hotel does not allow Cheryl to answer. Strange and unfamiliar, to not want an answer. It spills scrambled eggs across the sternum buffet table, beckoning her to clean its mess. So she says, "We'll talk about this later." Annalee walks out of the hotel while the hotel watches, opens the doors for her, shifts the shoulder joints of the dining chair so that her raincoat drops to the floor and she remembers to take it with her. She leaves her empty plate on the table, assuming a hotel which opens doors can also wash dishes. The basin tabletop, formed by a wide pelvis, lacks the joints and mobility for such a task. But Cheryl removes the dishes. She sweeps the crumbs gathered at the center of the bone, knowing they irritate its compact tissue. Cheryl talks while she works, divulging a stream of life's banalities to the hotel. She's planted new tulips for the spring. A neighbor dropped off homemade bread. The stray cat that begs for food at her door let her pet him for the first time. Though her stories lack the intrigue of distant tales from faraway visitors, the hotel finds itself tuned to the reverberations of Cheryl's voice. The hotel flexes its tibia countertops in an approximation of a whine until Cheryl returns to the important topic. "I told you not to worry about Annalee," she says. "She'll be gone as quickly as she got here, and I'll stay, as always." The ribbed cabinet doors protest. "I don't know her. I came here soon after my son married, and after I left, no one wanted anything to do with me." When the hotel tries to demand further explanation, Cheryl shuts the whining cabinet door. "And don't you try to pry more information out of her. She's a guest. You treat her well and let her go. Nothing else." But all guests owe their stories. This is the hotel's due. Annalee returns, coat speckled with light rain, and asks Cheryl to sit down. She attempts an excuse, but the hotel heats the water kettle until it whistles, and Cheryl pours herself and Annalee a cup of tea. "My father says you found this hotel and left us for it," Annalee says. "I had to pry that out of him. He won't speak of you, but there must be more." "There isn't." Annalee's hands wrap around her steaming mug. "You left your family for a weird, creepy building. There's got to be more." "I left a life that wasn't making me happy for this hotel, this beautiful, living, strange being. And it understands, even if you can't. That's why I won't be going back." Annalee looks as though she might argue, but instead pushes a slip of paper toward Cheryl. "I wish you'd come home now, but even if it takes you weeks or months or a year, I'll wait. This is a flight voucher. I saved up for it. It doesn't have a date, so use it whenever. Or not at all. That's up to you. But you should know, Grandpa's starting to ask for you. I wouldn't have flown all the way out here if it didn't matter." Cheryl slips the voucher into her sweater pocket and says nothing to the hotel, while Annalee returns to her room. The hotel has never known stories to have consequences. Guests enter and exit, divulging some shred of their lives to the hotel, but keeping most to themselves. Cheryl once asked why it cared about all the information it had or didn't have about a world it would never experience. The hotel did not answer the question. Did she never worry that there is a corner of her sidewalk that her feet will never reach? That there is a glass on the top shelf of her favorite bar that her lips will never touch? That there is something she could know, but through her own incuriosity, does not know? Now, the hotel begins to understand. If it could ask Annalee a question, it would not ask where Annalee comes from, or what colors flow along the edges of the freeways between here and there, or how many birds pass over her house each day, and do they make their way through the same sky hanging over the hotel. It would ask if Cheryl is going to leave. The hotel has always wanted answers, but for the first time, the hotel needs the answer to be no. The hotel does not like to seal its doors. It does not like to feel a woman kicking the vertebrae of its door frame, shouting to be let out. It does not like demanding what it is owed. Annalee gives no stories or answers, just a barrage of curses, then tears. When she finds that the bone walls block both sound and cell service, she gives in, curling into her bed, resigned to her imprisonment. But Cheryl notices her absence. She always notices, and marches to Annalee's doors. If Bones had eyes, she'd make stern eye contact with the hotel. But as it is, she looks up at the cranial ceiling and says, "Open up." The vertebrae unlatch, just long enough for Cheryl to slip through before the door reseals. She sits on the cushioned chair of intertwined radii and ulnas, while Annalee rises and returns to testing the shut door. "I've told it that locking people in their rooms doesn't elicit the best responses, but it doesn't listen to me," says Cheryl. "You left your family for this monster." "It's not a monster. It's threatened and doesn't know how to talk to you." "I've never threatened it." "You want to take me away," says Cheryl. "It took you away from us, not the other way around, and now it won't let either of us leave, even if you want to." Cheryl taps the arm of her chair and says to the hotel, "Like I said, a terrible method." The hotel has no other methods. "Stop talking to a building." The hotel's joints scream at Annalee. "No," says Cheryl. "You need to try talking to it. It wants to know why you're here and why you want me to leave." "Bullshit," says Annalee. "You want to know that." "Perhaps we grow similar over so many years, but I don't control the doors. The hotel does." Annalee wraps the comforter around her shoulders. "If I try to explain, are you going to listen this time?" "Listening is the only thing we can promise." The hotel does listen. In the breakfast hall, one guest recounts walking the streets of Mumbai, and another describes the texture of a tortoise's shell against his palm. While Annalee speaks, the hotel hears none of this. "I didn't know I had a grandmother until Grandpa started getting old," says Annalee. "No one ever talked about you until he forgot who I was and started calling me by your name. Then he kept speaking of a woman enchanted by a hotel of bones, so I did some research and here I am. He doesn't remember me anymore, But he still remembers you. Ah. Cheryl never cries, but humans have muscles that tense and flex their skin into patterns that reveal emotions they'd rather hide. Please come home, Annalee says. I think you should go, says Cheryl. The hotel opens its doors. It lets Annalee go because it does not need answers from her. But with Cheryl, it chitters and jabs her with metatarsals until she says, Of course I didn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what I left behind when I chose you. No person will understand why I would give up my life for a hotel of bones. And you will never understand what it is to walk away from everything. This was always my pain, and I chose to keep it for myself. You don't get to have every story. In the lobby, Annalee carves her name into the scapula desk where Cheryl sits. She leaves her a reminder intended to last in perpetuity. It does not. Bones do not scar the way people do. Its tissue heals, smooths over as though it had never been touched. And, like every other fleeting guest, nothing remains of Annalee's visit. Nothing but a piece of paper, folded over 3 times and stashed in the pocket of an old woman's sweater, the one she'd been meaning to send to the dry cleaners. Then, Cheryl, too, is gone. In her absence, the hotel learns to unclog its own sink drains and fuse cartilage around the window panes to keep the cold air out. It watches for her bones, the ones she said she'd bury beneath its ribcage, the only ones it thought would stay. But when her bones at last return, they arrive still covered in sunburnt flesh, still full of chatter while she inspects the piping beneath the sinks. I think I'd like to see the world, she says, in between telling the bones about a house on the side of a cliff where salt water sprays a fence laced with rainbow abalone shells, of a family that wasn't quite overjoyed to see her, but still suggested she might visit again someday soon. I want to bring you more interesting stories than the small frets of my life. The hotel creaks, and Cheryl takes the sound as encouragement. But the bones cannot explain that they have 1,000 visitors with 1,000 tales of 1,000 worlds, but no one else to tell them if the tulips bloomed or the stray cat returned for more food. I'll miss you, though, but you'll be glad to have a break from my old voice. A single phalange, one of an array supporting the bathroom mirror, stretches away from its own skeleton. When Cheryl reaches for it, the joint pulls free, and the finger bone settles into her palm. But disconnected from its frame and marrow, the bone's sheen of life dissipates. No, this won't do, says Cheryl. She has a utility knife in her pocket, which she washes with a bit of soap, insufficient disinfection for surgical procedures. She makes a small but deep cut just above her clavicle, pressing the knife through her skin to where the tendon meets bone. The hotel cannot scream, only creak its bones and hope someone with vocal cords will come running. She pushes the loose bone into her collar, where it worms itself into the humid tissues of her body, resting against a foreign skeleton. The sliver of the hotel ensconces itself inside her, pulling her skin over a hard lump of bone. She never screams, only whimpers as the hotel settles into her. Then she collapses. Cheryl bleeds, and the hotel bleeds too. It is a sympathetic bleeding, dripping from the walls, everywhere, the hotel in its entirety secreting red. The blood flows into a path, directing its onlookers toward the room where Cheryl's body lies, still pulsing out its own blood. A newlywed couple finds her first, and soon the hotel is ushering emergency medics through its doors and watching Cheryl leave on a stretcher. Then she is gone. But not quite gone. Cartilage fuses two bones together. Cheryl spends a day in the hospital while doctors stitch her wound, and she convinces the staff that it was a clumsy accident. Won't happen again. The building is made of concrete and speaks in a soft language the hotel does not understand. The bedsheets scratch at skin attached to muscle, attached to tendons, attached to bone. Cheryl browses plane tickets while the wound heals. When the stitches come out, she says, "I think I'm ready. Are you?" Outside its own skeleton, the hotel doesn't know how to creak bones and voice a response. But she knows its answer.
That was Kathleen Schaefer's The Ossification of the Space Between Us, as read by Krystal Hammond. Krystal Hammond is a narrator/writer, cancer survivor, and non-binary queer human. They grew up in rural North Carolina, nurtured by a steady diet of local Blackbeard legends and Confederate ghost stories. These nuggets of folktale and myth fostered a lifelong love of storytelling and all the drama that goes with it. They also have a master's degree in biological anthropology and adore ugly cats. Feel free to check out their narration website at krystalhammond.com or find them on Twitter at @thekmhammond. Thank you, Krystal. Well, children of the night, the hour is late and we've run out of tales to tell. For now. Tales to Terrify is made possible by the tremendous generosity of our supporters on Patreon and PayPal. Incredible fans like Lestle Baxter, Amanda Carrillo, Amanda Gottfried, and Orion D. Hegre, whose generous support keeps these lights on and flickering ominously. If you're not a supporter, head over to patreon.com/Tales to Terrify. You'll find all kinds of perks, like ad-free episodes, bonus content, and one-of-a-kind collectibles. Every dollar goes back into this show, and we appreciate your support so much. Want another way to support the show that doesn't cost you a cent? Head over to Podchaser, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts and drop us a 5-star review. You'll not only put an unnaturally wide smile on our faces, but help new listeners discover our terrifying tales too. You can show your love of the show out in the world with some Tales to Terrify merch. TalesToTerrify.com/merch will take you to our TeePublic store, where we've got a great collection of creepy custom and curated designs. Tales to Terrify is produced by Seth Williams, Meredith Morgenstern, Andrew Gibson, Krystal Hammond, Spencer Disparty, and myself, Drew Sebastini, with original theme by Nebulous Entertainment. Tales to Terrify is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Join us again next week as we face the ghosts of our past with more tales to terrify.